Yeah. Ay, 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 ay. Whoa. If the real talk gets in hot, bring it up. If the lies need sunlight, bring it up. Cause every night we talk love and then we talk lies, then we laugh. Then we open your eyes. If it's messy but it's funny, bring it up. If it's sweet but it's shady, bring it up. Cause every night we talk love and then we talk lies. Real talk in our Cayman tonight.
Good night, everyone. You're tuned in to Real Talk, Love and Lies, the late night space where we put love, lies, and all the messy in between on the table. We're your hosts, Alfred,
And Matilda.
and our other co hosts are you, the listeners. Your stories shape this show. If you're new here, this is where we talk honestly about relationships and betrayal, laugh so we don't cry, and ask the questions most people only whisper about in group chats. So get comfortable, plug in your headphones, or turn the volume down low if the kids are still awake. This is Real Talk, Love and Lies, and we're just getting started. Quick disclaimer before we get into it. The content you're about to hear, including discussions and opinions from us, our guests, and participants, is intended solely for general informational and entertainment purposes. We are not therapists, lawyers, doctors, or financial advisors, and nothing said on this show should be taken as professional advice. It is not a substitute for counseling, legal guidance, medical care, or financial consultation. If you have specific concerns, we strongly encourage you to seek advice from a qualified professional. Real Talk, Love and Lies accepts no liability for any decisions or actions taken based on the information shared here tonight. We're here for honest conversation, respectfully shared, and any resemblance to real people is purely coincidental, unless your halo slips when nobody's watching.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to keep the conversation going after the show, scan the QR code on the screen, follow us on Instagram, and you can join our Real Talk WhatsApp news channel for the topic drops, episode updates, and the spicy questions before we go live. And if you've been living under a rock the last couple years and you still somehow don't follow them, go fix that right now. Follow Cayman Mall Road, Cayman's number one source for fast news, real talk, and all the Cayman happenings before your group chat even wakes up. So, Matilda,
Oi. We took a
talk
little
to
week
me.
off last week, didn't we?
Yeah, boy. I was sick with the cold, and
You got
I
that
mean,
sexy voice going on now. You're going to have a little
I
man
that
melting now. Watch him.
that's the only positive of this. And my voice is getting lighter. I want that deeper voice I had 2 days ago, man. 3 days
Listen, man.
ago.
If and people know that you torment me during the weekend. So if you ever hear the voice notes, this man has been enjoying the sound of his voice this week.
To give everybody, listen, if you're one of my contacts in WhatsApp and you hear a voice note going to the effect of I see skies of blue, clouds of white, you
So I
know that
thought it was
because
just
I
me.
sick.
I thought I was special.
No, child, I send that out to everybody. I'm like,
Fix my business. No,
yeah,
child,
boy.
you're not special. Mm-mm.
So,
We got a topic this evening that we really want to get into. That is just so there's been a lot of chat and a lot of reporting on some very very disturbing activities. There was a disturbing image of someone going through surgery who had been through a really really serious wreck, and the allegation is that this person's wife ran over them with a car, and then they then had sustained serious injuries to their legs, and it just brought to light some of the fears around domestic abuse that men are when men are suffering from domestic abuse, when men are the victims of domestic abuse, how differently we deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
So did you see those images? Did you actually see the pictures on the show, on the morning show?
Yeah, they were actually pretty gruesome. I mean, I thought it almost reminded me of, and I mean, I'm not trying to make light of the subject or the thing that I actually saw, but it almost reminded me, like when you, I don't know, I don't want to be crude or crass or anything, but it reminded me of when you buy those hot dogs from the
And they split
supermarket,
in the microwave.
and they split in the microwave, and you smell
Yes.
this.
Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I thought, and it broke my heart because this
Yeah,
is it really broke my heart because if that were my brother, I don't know what I would do. I don't know what I would do if that was my brother. I'd be Northwood right now. And I say that lightly because I can't even say that because I know that there are family members who are probably struggling to restrain themselves to deal with this something. And
yeah.
but this is, even when women are victims of domestic abuse, there is this strange response that we often have, like, how do you intervene, and can you intervene, and will it make a difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's we have a lot to talk about. Let's just say that that's the beginning of our conversation, but our conversation tonight is about how men treat domestic abuse when they are the victims, and how
Mm-hmm.
they are treated in our society.
Mm-hmm. So we to get the views of um our listeners, right, or our followers, we asked the question in our WhatsApp group chat, and I'm putting the poll up on screen now. And the question was, can men in Cayman safely admit they're being abused? Right? Now, what that poll says more than anything is that people in Cayman do not think this issue is decided by principle, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
They think that it's decided by social context. As you can see by the number of people who chose, um, depends on who's involved, right?
Mhm.
For me, that means that people are not saying yes, men are supported, and they're not even saying no, men are mocked in a simple way. They're saying support, belief, and safety are selective. And what that suggests is that people think a man's chances of being believed depend on things like who the woman is, who the man is,
Mhm.
who has the better public image,
Mhm.
who is more liked, who is more connected, who tells the story first. That's a big one. And who looks more believable to the community, right?
Yeah, but I think there's
So,
also even more than that too, though, because there's also, is this somebody who has a record of being the perpetrator and they just got their ass handed to them for the first time? Like, depends on who's involved. There's certain men that if they claim domestic abuse and that their entire history has been beaten on women, that is another thing I think that comes into play.
I didn't even think about that. You're right about that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
hmm So, in other words, it's almost like he's getting his just desserts kind of thing.
Yeah, like, it's his turn now. Like, and I've seen that with like, I'm saying that from a point of experience with people that I know, some that are a little close, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where and when they are called out on their abusive behavior, they turn around and say, oh, but she started, or you don't know what I've been living with. And so immediately they actually have discredited themselves by being perpetrators in their own right.
hmm hmm So, it said to me, um, that people believe abuse isn't just judged in a vacuum, right? But the
It's not
second place,
strict. It's not strictly dealt with. There's not a no tolerance policy.
right?
Hmm.
But the second place answer, no, people laugh first,
That
tells
one
me that
surprised me.
there's still a very real belief that male abuse is treated as humiliating before it is treated as serious, right?
Hmm.
Um, and it suggests that many people believe, a male victim's first hurdle isn't safety, it's shame. Yeah?
And it depends on who's shaming them too, because I was thinking of this through when I saw this, and is it? And I really think that we need to get our guest on before we get too deep into this, because I think that they may have some real good insights into this side. So maybe what we do right now is pause a little bit and have her come in and talk about this as well. What do you think about that? Because that's a surprise. I'm so sorry. I let the surprise out the bag. So tonight,
surprise, folks.
I know tonight we are so lucky tonight to have somebody new come onto our show. I call her a guest, but really she's another co-host, and her name is Maria, and she is lovely, and she is also she's hilarious. I asked how she would like to be introduced, and she said, "I like oatmeal and raisin cookies. I hate mukbangs and any unnecessary mouth noises." Let's welcome to the stage, Maria. Welcome, Maria.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
I think the first thing we want to get really into is, checking in on what you think of this. What do you think the poll is telling us?
I think it says a lot. Like you guys were saying earlier, obviously it depends on who's involved. It seems to have the most response or the most votes, closely followed by no people laugh first. And all of these things are very true, right? But to the point of no people laugh first, I think that is such a common reality of male domestic abuse. Not only in Cayman, but I think just kind of globally. And it's such a serious matter, and I think it's almost painful to think about it. So you try to make light of it as best as you can, which is why I think people tend to try and laugh and make light of it before you take it seriously.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you on that one. I think there's also a piece around that too, where people laugh first. It's almost like, handle her, what?
Kind of.
You put her in her place, or what?
Yeah.
So there's almost an expectation that, but big man like you couldn't deal with that.
Yeah, kind of, and it's almost yeah.
And so
it's
there's
almost like this belief that like a man could find themselves in a situation like what?
Yes, there we go. I think that is the key.
It's almost like when you see a really big dog that's terrified of cats. It's kind of like that, that kind of way. So it's probably not the best analogy, but
no, that is a wicked analogy. I think that is such a
picture of how I think it's kind of approached.
Yeah. That is so funny. The image that I have in my mind. I think you're absolutely right. That is how it's seen. Like, you are the physically stronger person in this, but once again, it's not about the size of the dog in the fight. It's about the size of the fight in the dog, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this particular instance, though, I think this really highlighted the thing that came up in the press. The conversation that's been happening in the community has been one where it's actually highlighted that there's more to this than just physical superiority and brute force. There is more to this. There's a psychological element, and it's sometimes a man being a good man puts him in a position where he does not respond to someone's violence against him, because men don't hit women, good men don't hit women, and then they end up in this position where they're taking licks.
And that's just one layer of it too, right? Like that's just one layer of the onion.
I just had to sigh at that, because I know of so many instances, looking back on my own life, and friends and family members where boys don't hit girls and men don't hit women and that kind of thing, and women. Well, I'll start with girls. Girls sort of learn
Ah,
growing up that okay, okay, well, I can hit him, but he can't hit me,
Yeah.
yeah.
and I'm of the belief nobody should be hitting anybody. Like nobody
Yeah.
should be putting their hands on anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I remember one particular. I'm telling the story. A friend that I had in the States. He and I and another friend of ours. We went over to his place. Now he was one of those guys that was he was massive. He was built,
Mm-hmm.
and one of his hand probably could span, I don't know, my chest.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mhm.
that's how big this guy was. And he had this
Like
girl
Goliath?
who, huh?
He sound like Goliath.
I know, cause if
No,
you
no,
know
but
Alfred, he not small guy.
I mean, yeah, no, like he was massive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he had this girl who was very, shall we say, ratchet,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-mm.
she
Word.
was, huh?
Ratchet's a wonderful word.
Yeah, she was ratchet. Anyway, we were hanging out, and he came in. We were hanging out. We were watching TV or something. I forget what we were doing. And she came into the room. She had curlers in her hair, duster
Mm.
on,
Mm.
um, cussing at him and telling him all kinds of things. If you hear something in the background, folks, that's a cat that I have that's very animated at this time of night. Um, yeah, so she came into the room and she was cussing at him and stuff, and I mean just telling him the worst things, and I don't even want to repeat it on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And we were looking at him and we were just like, all right, dude, like we're gonna go. And he's like, yeah, let me walk you out to the car. So I guess because she didn't like being ignored, she took it on herself to slap him in the back of his head,
Mm.
right? And
Mhm.
she was one of them, one that she wore rings on her finger,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So she was smaller than, I mean, she was smaller than all of us, but
Mm-hmm.
she felt bold enough to hit him on the back of the head. Now he turned around and he squared up, and he did that whole like oh like he had to bring himself back. And
Yeah.
we were holding on to his arms like, yo, it's not worth it, not worth it. Not like we could do anything. He could probably throw us, right? But he calmed down and he turned around, and we just kept walking, and she decided no, she was going to hit him again,
Mm.
but this time she caught him on his ear.
Mhm.
My love, all I can tell you was we didn't know his hand went up until his hand came down.
Mm.
She went one way, Carlos went the next way, Flippers went the next way,
I don't mean to
and
laugh, but
and I
No, but if
mean,
you man enough to lick man, you man enough to take lick.
no,
yeah.
but I mean,
I hate to sound ratchet, but that's something that I've always believed as somebody who has had so much respect for the men in my life. If you man enough to do that, then you man enough to take it.
Mhm.
like I don't want to. I'm not trying to say it to be funny or to try to make light of it, but I mean, it's going back to your point of like the little cat
Mhm. Yeah.
scaring the big dog.
Yeah.
And what people don't understand is in that situation is that men fight with men are physical. Like we fight,
Yes.
we
Mhm.
fight physical. Women tend to fight with their words, and they tend to fight socially,
Psychological.
right?
Yeah, yeah. Women
um
will wage a psychological war on
It's
you
true. Very
sometimes.
true.
so when you stepping into that sphere of all right, you want to take it to a physical level, I mean, you got to understand you communicating to men on a certain anyway. I tell that story just because
You
I
observe it.
balk I balk when I hear that, like, oh, well, you shouldn't hit girls. I mean, nobody should be hitting anybody,
Yeah, yeah.
and if you can give it, you should take it. But anyway, that's my
But you
um
see, that's I was so lucky with my growing up, right? Is that you know, my brother would have been taught, no, you do not hit women. You walk away if it looks like it's coming to that. You do not hit women. You walk away. You remove yourself from that situation. And
Mhm.
it conversely, I was also taught that if you man enough to lick a man, you are man enough to take a lick.
Mhm.
So it was that, to me, was the egalitarian approach, right? Like, you do
Yeah.
not hit somebody, period. It is just
Yeah.
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 it is beneath you, it is, and so on, right? But
Mhm.
I watched this whole thing on play out because, you know, rumors are now coming out about how this particular relationship that's brought the topic up has deteriorated over the years, and how there have been confrontations in public places, etc., etc. And at no point in time have I ever heard of this young man lifting his hand to this woman
Hmm.
and living in fear. Can you imagine living in fear with your legs broken with the same person in the house, and it's not been reported to the police for weeks?
Jesus.
I have to tell you that that has got to be one of the most horrifying experiences that somebody can have, because you cannot stand up.
Yeah.
You cannot stand up. And I mean, I feel it. I feel it in my body, like the chills, just thinking about being in that situation. If you've ever been sick and you have been helpless, and you've needed the support of someone else, you know that that's already a bad feeling. But if you turn around and you know that the person that is physically there closest to you is the person that put you here, let me tell
Yeah.
you something. That is a level of wickedness that
Yeah.
I have no problem saying that you cannot, like, I cannot get past it. I cannot get past it. I'm so glad we have this conversation tonight, because, you know, I'm always accused in the comments of being a little bit of I'm not
Against the
really
men.
mad. I've been called a man hater on this show before, but let me tell you something. I make that happen, my brother. That's all I could feel. And it's so funny because I know I'm also noticing, right? So I can say make that had been my brother as a woman, but that young man's brother probably gonna have a harder time saying that, because now he's being seen as threatening a woman.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah,
Mhm.
and you know, to that point, like when you look at the legal aspect of that,
Mm-hmm.
there really are not there's not a lot of legal protection for men where that is concerned. Like, and not to discredit from abuse against women and
Because that is also a very
female experience, because that is also very, very real. But we don't have grounds to charge someone for disrespecting the modesty of a man. That's not a thing.
that's such an
Can we
antiquated
make
point.
that a thing?
Pardon?
Can
Can
we
we
make
make
that a
that
thing?
Yeah,
Lying should be illegal. So period. But
yeah.
if they deserve it, I don't mind them saying
But yeah,
it.
so like you said, like when you look at this individual's brother, like
Hmm.
not only do they have to be cautious and careful and
Yes, because the
very
laws protect women so much more. I never thought of that.
yeah, like they can't even say the wrong thing because all of a sudden they're being accused with disrespecting the modesty of a woman, and they could find themselves in court.
And you know, I don't think that I do not think I'm exaggerating to say that domestic abuse against men in is probably comparable in numbers to
I would
domestic.
imagine so.
Just looking at my life alone and the people that I know, right? And this is not necessarily people that I am around that I condone, but you know, everybody knows this, right? Everybody knows when you see things when they're happening, and you know that there are women that are being beat up at home, but you also know that there are men who are getting phone calls from their woman hollering at them and telling them about this, that, and the next, and you better get your behind home, and who you there, you with some woman. That is
Mm.
also abuse, which kind of comes to the other thing, like, what is abuse? There's so many things beyond just the physical,
Mm-hmm.
and women are very good at the psychological and
Yeah.
verbal.
And like that's what I mentioned earlier, right? Like it is very much an onion. There's so many different layers to it, and the more you peel it back, like you get to different levels and different layers of it, and it's not a one size fits all. It's not a linear um approach or
Hmm. Hmm.
situation.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I wanted to ask you, right? In your view,
Hmm.
because I can give my view as a man, but it'd be interesting to see, as two women, why people don't take male abuse seriously. What's your thoughts?
I think there's an expectation about manhood. There's a view of manhood and an expectation that men, by virtue of them being physically stronger, are automatically able to protect themselves.
Okay. What do you think, Maria?
Um, I think there's kind of two sides to this coin that you could consider and you could look at. I don't necessarily think it's a case that it's not taken seriously. It's not talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even know that it gets the opportunity to be taken seriously.
Mm-hmm.
It's not talked about. It is. I think male domestic abuse is not even think. I know it is more taboo than talking about sex
Oh yeah, or being gay.
or being gay. Yeah, it is way more taboo. So, like I said, I don't think it's a case that it's not taken seriously. It's just not talked about. And when it is spoken about, unfortunately, we have a layer of conditioning, and it's not even. I don't even think it's something that we're aware of, but the reality is we have these layers of conditioning. We have cultural conditioning, societal conditionings, where, like Matilda said, you almost expect that a man should be able to hold their own. So when it does present itself, you're kind of like, well, how did this happen?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Do you
And
think?
I think there's another layer actually to add to that, because something that Maria just said that makes sense too is that the expectation that a man can take care of himself discounts the psychological erosion of that man's self-worth and his agency and his power.
Yeah.
And that is the thing that female abusers are particularly good at, is that erosion. Let me tell you something. I have seen a female abuser attack a man and then turn around and play the victim and claim that he has abused them and use that as a threat over that man's head to not defend himself. Because the female victim is taken more seriously by particularly law enforcement. I feel that law enforcement is some of the most. I do not see. I would like to know more. Let me come at it from a place of curiosity, even though I'm sitting in a place of judgment, because I can't claim to know it all, right? But I feel that law enforcement, I would like to know more about how they are prepared to deal with these circumstances.
Well, I just want to chime in here and kind of to circle back to the point that I was mentioning about that cultural conditioning. I can only speak about the Cayman and the Caribbean perspective, because that is where the basis of my exposure has been. That is what I'm the most familiar with. And you have to think about, I don't know that they're equipped to handle it, because we weren't raised to. There's so much shame around it. Like, as a man, you as a man, or Alfred as a man, maybe you can speak to this. You're raised to be this strong, supportive, independent individual, this provider. And there's so much shame around being seen as weak or being vulnerable. Vulnerability is such a big issue, I think, in
What is
Caribbean
vulnerability?
societies in general.
How you
So
spell
you
that?
that only be vulnerable in a situation like this, like,
Mhm.
I don't know that there is. I don't know that we have enough emotional education around it.
You would think that law enforcement would have some form of domestic
But
abuse.
Well, you would think so, right? But again, like I feel like it's always focused towards women and children.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
but
I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. I don't know. And even if you do get some training and stuff, again, it just always boils back down to like that conditioning, like culture, all of that stuff. Like I don't know. I feel like that plays a huge role in all of it.
well, I mean, all of that is true. I mean, in my opinion, but I actually wanted to ask you: do you think that female aggression gets softened by language? So, for instance, right? If I, as a man, go off on a woman, right? I would be described as unhinged, violent, aggressive, what have you. But a woman now, oh, she was emotional. She snapped. She lost it. She was pushed too far. You
I don't
find that wording
think
often
so.
minimizes what happened?
I don't think so. I think now for that type of behavior, now I think we've gotten a lot better at calling spades. Like if somebody is behaving very unhinged, if they have a reputation of being volatile, I
That's
think
different.
I think we're now in a space where women are held accountable to that. Like, okay, no, that was uncalled for. Like,
In
you are wrong
fact,
for that.
in fact, I would say that women hold women accountable in a way that men don't hold men accountable when they are the perpetrator. So, for instance, if I, women that that are in that I've come across that have found themselves behaving like abusers, I've seen other women drape them up and say, "You don't speak to him like that. What that is unnecessary." So women generally moderate female behavior in a way that men are like, men don't always do the same thing. Men will wait until you raise the hand and then they'll interrupt.
Yeah.
Whereas a woman will interrupt far before it gets physical. So in answer to your question, Alfred, I disagree. I actually don't think that that is quite so. I don't think it's softened by language. That might be softened by language somewhere else. But you know what? I think there's also, and this is an interesting point to consider as well. You have to also remember that we're speaking to the context of Cayman, where in other places you have other intersectionalities in this conversation. So, for instance, if a white woman in the United States loses her shit on a man, it's more likely to be softened by language. But if a black woman loses her shit on a man, it's not going to get the same kind of gentling
Angry black woman
reporting, right? Exactly, because then there are tropes that are adhered to. I don't think that is the same here. I don't really think that that's the same here. It may exist, but it's not as stark and not as obvious.
I wouldn't say that it does not exist just because I've heard of, and it wasn't towards a man particularly, but I have heard of instances where a woman of a perceived socioeconomic class behaved in a certain way, and if it was someone else, another woman from another socioeconomic class, it would not have been handled the same.
But I think that's true of a lot of things in our society. It is far more class based than it is and wealth based than it is. Our divisions are far more along those lines rather than on racial.
Yeah.
But if we could take a wider view, right? I mean, this is my opinion, right? Because I've noticed is because we do take in a lot of American media. Excuse me, American news and that kind of thing. One of the things I've noticed is that a woman slapping a man gets played for laughs. You see it in movies, memes, everyday conversations. And for me, like I think it subliminally teaches people that if it happens to him,
Mm-hmm.
it might be embarrassing, but it's not serious, right?
Yeah.
Like if a
Mm-hmm.
woman raises her hand to a man in annoyance,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whether it actually hurts him or it's just sort of just to tap him or whatnot, it's seen as it's not seen as serious, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But um, I think too, men are often expected to just leave,
Mhm.
as if leaving is simple,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And what I find is that people don't acknowledge, appreciate that abuse creates confusion,
Yeah.
100%.
fear,
Yeah.
dependency, shame, hope, attachment,
Yeah.
social pressure,
Hmm.
and men can get stuck for the same reason anybody else gets stuck.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the reality is abusers do not make it easy
Mm-hmm.
for their partners to leave.
Mm,
They do not make it easy.
It's a
don't.
psychological game, and but there's another piece to this as well, right? I actually think that when a man is the victim, his reaction is often mirrored by his community. So for instance, in the case where a man pretends that it isn't happening and he's like covering it up, or he's pretending he fell down the stairs, or whatever the story is, when he's being physically abused by his female partner, and he covers it up and he like uses bravado and all of those things, people respect his bravado and allow him to save face rather than reach in and interrupt and support, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, I think so because, okay, like, that's what he said, now I'm not gonna interrupt him, so you allow him to keep his face. But if a man
Yeah.
turns up and says if a man turns up and says, she did this to me last night and I don't know how to deal with it because I really don't, I can't live like this, that is when you see support. So I feel like what happens here is that the victim is almost expected to lead their rescue in a way that women aren't. Like if a woman comes and say he hit me last night, and or she's pretending, and you press that button a little bit further and say, do you need a rescue? Are you safe? Whereas, you don't pry the same way that you do with a man.
Men don't support men, and I'm gonna just keep it 100. Men don't support other men.
I don't know.
I,
I don't
I, I,
know.
I'm conflicted, right? And maybe I'm just being a little bit naive. Um, but based on the men in my life and what I know of their characters and the types of friends that they are to their male friends, I would like to believe that if one of them found themselves in an abusive situation, they may not come right out and say something right away, as is
Mhm,
often the case in these situations. But
mhm.
I would like to believe that they would say, like, be real with me, like what is really going on, like
Yeah, yeah.
what is
I think you're
happening, like
right.
we can tell something's up.
But you also have to remember that people that are in abusive relationships, generally speaking, have been isolated before the violence actually starts.
Gonna get to,
Yes.
You're,
I
you're
was
breaking
just
up,
gonna get
bro.
to. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you're kind of breaking up a little bit. But you say we're
No,
just gonna get to that.
I was saying I was just gonna say that that's part of the abuse. It's the
Mm-hmm,
isolation of people. You don't have a support wall. You
mm-hmm.
don't have a support system.
Yeah.
And women are particularly good at dismantling the support system of their partner if they are an abusive partner, because there is a people, women will use jealousy, women will use flying off and violence,
Yeah.
women will use tears, women will use all sorts of things to isolate you, And I think that there's a belittling of men that happens, like an
Mhm.
evisceration of their manhood that
Mhm.
happens through the process,
Yeah.
and they isolate them by saying, well, you actually see sometimes where like a woman will say, "Boy, your boys them must boy they don't respect you."
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
saying that, actually
Yeah.
saying
Can
it,
I
right?
can I can
Mhm.
I interject here? I want to interject.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's something I've noticed just in interactions within certain crowds of people.
Uh-huh.
I've noticed it so many times that it's a pattern, and I hate when I see it. You'll have two people who are together, and they're out and about social interactions, and let's say I'm just meeting you for the first time, right?
Hmm.
And I'm with my wife or my girlfriend or whatever, and my wife or my girlfriend is meeting this person, and they tell a joke at my expense,
Mm.
right? I've
Hmm.
seen women do it in a way that men don't do it to women in social interactions.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it starts. I think that's
Yes.
one of the because it seems harmless. I'm of the opinion that if you're my partner and we're out in public, we keep one head.
Yeah.
That's my belief. But I've seen where people sort of, oh yeah, well,
Belittle.
at least you're doing something with your life. Henry over here,
Yeah.
he's
These
not
Yes, throwing shade.
something,
yeah.
right? I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah,
right.
Sneak dissing.
And the thing is that abuse isn't only in the bruising,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Like there's
100%.
financial abuse. I'm a believer that a man can be sexually abused by a woman, but
I
that's
I believe so too.
what other
I
thought.
believe so
Mhm,
too. Even though the
mhm.
Uh,
law does not really support a lot of it, really doesn't support the protection of men in the way that it does women. But
and
even
Mhm.
then, it's also inadequate for women. So let's not go down that.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
but you mentioned women's tears, right?
Uh huh. Uh huh.
And I don't want to skip over that point because I don't. Women's tears are a very powerful weapon,
Mhm.
right? And because it's you see somebody crying, you automatically want to go
In
and help them
control.
and intervene. Clearly, they're the ones, and especially if it's somebody who you already perceive as the weaker one, the fairer one, the one who is, you know,
Vulnerable.
Yeah,
historically wronged, right?
yeah,
And it becomes this, a woman can never do anything wrong, and a man can't do anything right kind of dichotomy.
yeah,
So he's automatically suspect. Anyway,
yeah,
sorry, I just had to interject. Go ahead. Sorry.
And you see, that's also something that other women hate. When you see a woman using those tools, and it listen, man, that gets on my nerves. I really
yeah,
hate when women trade on their what they see as their feminine wiles, right? Because that's just a way of using your feminine wiles.
mhm.
It has always been something I have struggled to watch because I don't respect it. And I noticed that the more of these talks that we have, I notice that I have a pretty high bar for respect. But in these instances, like you can see, right, that there's the black widow that goes from relationship to relationship and tears these men's lives apart.
Yeah.
Some of them will lie on them, some of them cry rape, right? Some of
Yeah,
them,
Mhm.
that's because he can't.
that is one of the things I really hate. Hmm?
Yeah,
I was saying that she will lie on him just because he doesn't give her something that she wants.
Yes.
yeah,
And then you
yeah.
see them threatening to take their children. You see them like there's so many men that stay in abusive situations
Your
because
immigration status.
what, sorry?
Your immigration status.
Your
Mhm.
immigration, well, that's part of it too, but that generally I find is more prevalent with female victims.
Yeah.
Immigration status thing is used against women far more than it is against men. But the children are used against men. The children are
Children
often,
are always a pawn.
in abusive situations. And I can just imagine how difficult it must be to be like, I just keep my thoughts keep going back to being in your bed knowing you cannot stand up, the person who put you there has taken compassionate leave to take care of you. And I put that in air quotes. And your children are in your house at their mercy. Do you know
Yeah.
how terrifying that must be as an experience?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is a horror movie plot.
Yeah. And you have so many men too, like to the point of children, you have so many men who will stay in relationships for their children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they
Tolerate the abuse.
tolerate so much because they're trying their very best to be there for their children and shelter them and protect them as much as possible and bear the cross so that their children do not have to get the brunt of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also a fear that the law is always going to award the mother
Correct.
custody of the children.
Correct.
And if you
Correct.
know that that person is abusive and you have not gone through the process of reporting that and creating a paper trail of that person's abuse, you run the risk in your leaving of them, even in the fight for your children, that they may actually get access to your kids and keep them and abuse them.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
like there's so much sadness in this that it just
But
ooh.
on a tangent to that about the law, right? I mean, I'm certainly no expert in the law, but there is nothing in the law that defines the female rape of a man.
Yes, because there are types of assault.
Right, but hold
There
on, but
are
an
types of
assault,
assault, but not
yeah,
rape.
yeah, but an assault carries. But remember, each one of these charges carries a different sentencing, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
No, but it can be
I'm
aggravated.
just
You'd be
no, but
surprised. Listen, man, a rape of a woman has gotten men 6 months in prison. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's not get excited about these penalties.
no. I'm just saying. I'm not saying nay, nor am I saying. I'm looking at a wider than Cayman, right?
Mhm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
just saying that um, there's an inequity
Yeah,
and
100%.
how
There
and
is an
how and
equity.
how.
There is an inequity because the definition of rape, to the best of my knowledge, is penetration by a penis.
And I think it should just be simplified to having sex with somebody without their consent.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You
There's an
understand?
argument for that. There's an argument that has been
But
made for that many times over in the British system.
what I'm saying, I bring that up. I bring that rape inequity up in the law to show that women get more legal protections than men,
Yes.
right? Or at least that's the
Mm-hmm.
perception. And
Mm-hmm.
so men don't feel like they can, like they're gonna believe her. They're not gonna believe me
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
Yeah.
statistically speaking, because I'm a man, I'm seen as the aggressor and I'm bigger and I'm
Yeah.
stronger and I'm and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess once you're already in an abusive situation, right, like your mind becomes your biggest enemy. And if that's your thought process from the jump, like, well, what, you're saying to yourself, well,
What's the point?
why go and report this for? Like,
Mhm.
you're not gonna believe me anyway. Like, who is gonna even take me seriously? That kind of way. So
Yeah, and they also are carrying shame of their own, right? They're
yeah,
also
yeah,
internalizing some of what they
yeah,
expect society to do to them, which is
yeah. Not only that, but then like again, like the psychological abuse too. Like I'm sure there are cases where you have a female abuser who is looking at their male partner and saying, "Yeah, man, go ahead, go tell him. Who could believe you anyway?"
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what they would say to him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or go ahead
Um,
and look like insert explicit here.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
I'm reminded of a clip with you saying that, Maria. I'm
Mhm.
reminded of a clip. There's a movie came out over 30 years ago. It's called Death Becomes Her.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
there's this thing where she is talking to her husband, and her husband was calling the police, and she says, mind you, this is a comedy, right? But
Mhm.
it just she's like, go ahead and call him. Nobody can play dead like me.
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, it's who's gonna believe you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
kind of thing.
But you had a clip here as well, right? There was something you wanted to share?
Yeah, it's take a look.
I think working with men over the last 4 years has kind of made me forget how little people actually understand men, how little they side with men, to the fact that most providers subconsciously are biased towards the women's side and they're not listening. Do you know how many times I've had to tell men that they're in an abusive relationship and no one has ever told them? No one has ever told them. They can't even see it. They have every single sign in the pie chart of abuse: physical, verbal, financial, sexual, using the kids, and no one has told them. And they come to me thinking that there's something wrong with them, something more that they can do to fix the situation. How do we expect people to get better if we're not even listening to what's going on? How can we even diagnose a problem if we're not listening to the details, if we're not reading between the lines, if we're not seeing the person in front of us? We have to do better. And for any men who
You know, yeah, and there's something that she says there that is like interesting to me. And I noticed that I, as a woman who gets up in other people's business in my life, right? There are so many instances in which I have said to people, "Do you know that you're in an abusive relationship?" And then I judge myself for being up in their business, right? So,
Yeah.
was that the right thing to say? Should I have said that? And now, this is such a validating thing to listen to, because when I see it as I say it a lot of times. And I think, Maria, you also have a reputation for that, right? Like, you see it as you say it.
I guess.
No, when you see it, you call it. Like, I've seen you call it before, right? And so there's this, like, so I say all this to say there is such a taboo against speaking out when you see it, because you're supposed to mind your own business. You're supposed to mind your own business. You know how many times I judge myself for saying to brethren, boy, you don't let her talk to you like that. Do not let that start. That is gonna slide. This is already escalating. This looks like abusive behavior.
Yeah.
All right, or I say it like this. I say, what is it when two heads meet one pillow,
Mhm,
Mm-hmm.
and
mhm.
all of a sudden now you become the enemy in common. Oh well, Matilda tried to break us up because she wanted to come first.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
She tried to get in between us because she's jealous. She wants what we have, but
Mhm, mhm,
we can make this and we can do this, and we're stronger together. And yeah, and so a lot of people have been in that situation too, and they
mhm.
just decide, look, some people just take a hands off approach when they see it. Not my
But
monkey, my circus.
yeah, but that's why also I have respect for what the person in the video is saying, which is, honoring the truth that you see,
Yeah.
and being a safe place. But I also suspect she's coming from a place of therapy, because it sounds like she's a therapist.
I would think so because she said that's when people come to her.
Yeah, it seems
That's
so.
what,
That's
yeah.
what I took from it.
But
Or some kind
uh,
of social work.
I'm going to advocate for therapy. I'm going to advocate the hell out of therapy. Like, this save your life.
but I
Literally
think
therapy.
I think bringing this issue home to Cayman, right? Talking specifically about Cayman. Um, I find that um, a lot of people grow up hearing things like, "Don't embarrass the family. Don't make
Yeah.
a scene. Don't put your business out there. Try to work it out privately."
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not necessarily for this issue, but for other issues
Yeah.
that we've kind of been conditioned to um,
This too?
create a,
The
well, no, but
safe
that's what I'm saying. But
space.
that's what I'm saying. It extends to this as well, right?
Hmm, hmm.
Um, it, it it's a pressure that can protect abusers because it victims are sort of conditioned to absorb more than they should
Yeah.
Mm,
because it's you don't want cause no
You're almost
embarrassment to the
expected to
family.
be a martyr.
Yeah, exactly.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Exactly, and I don't want to lose that, for some men, um, the fear is not just about being hit or controlled or abused or humiliated. It public shame. That's a real thing for us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Being
yeah.
laughed at, losing face, becoming gossip, being reduced to a joke.
Yeah, yeah,
Like that would keep me
yeah,
quiet. That
yeah.
could keep, and I can understand why a lot of men would stay quiet in a situation like that.
Especially in this the macho society,
Of
side of
course.
society, yeah, where there's a lot of bravado. But I feel as, I mean, we're coming to time very soon, and I feel as though, I mean, I have a final thought that I would like to put out there, and it's a long one, I think, and it's just that I would invite everyone in the community right now to wrap themselves around, particularly the young man that has been a victim, right? Wrap yourselves around this person and give them a safe place to be, because the unplugging from this type of experience is such a mental shakeup. And I also would encourage us to look out for each other, like really look out for each other and have difficult conversations and call it like we see it with the people that we love. Everybody who is living in an abusive relationship has people who love them,
Yes,
and
100.
it's a responsibility of those people who love them to make sure that they are a safe place. Now, I feel as though it's not, it has been one of the most um, helpless experiences I have had to see more than one loved one be in an abusive relationship. And I still have not learned how to be the right support that they need to be. But I think the very basics is to listen and to be a safe space without judgment. Because
Yes.
judging staying is one of the things that a lot of abuse victims avoid conversations for. They
Mm.
are avoiding being judged for staying.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit of a long one, but time for us to take care of our brothers and listen to our men.
Yeah. Yeah. And people, there may be some who hear, excuse me, there may be some people who hear conversations like this one tonight and feel like we're being anti-woman, but that's not what it is, right? I mean, um,
I go to war for my girls. So, and this is the only show that I have not been like I, I'm
If
breaking from the norm tonight.
what you said?
play devil's advocate for a quick minute, I would like to think that anyone who listens to tonight's show or who has listened to tonight's show, I would like to think that they wouldn't
Hmm. Hmm.
come to the opinion or to the side that this was an anti-woman
Hmm.
show. I
It's a
think it,
stretch to get to that. It would be a real
yeah,
stretch. Yeah.
yeah. It's not anti-woman. It was just,
Pro man does not mean anti.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think it definitely was a very um, pro-man conversation, which is not common, if we're being honest. Like we don't really have conversations often that are pro-men and that,
Meeting their needs. Yeah. You're right.
yeah, we don't really back or support men in our conversations or in conversations in general. Let's just call it what it is. So I think it would be a bit of a stretch for people to come to the conclusion that this was an anti-woman conversation. Or I would like
But
to hope so.
yeah, but I also think it does give me something to reflect on in my own language, though, because I imagine that it's that I can see where I spend so much time advocating for women that sometimes I miss the needs of the men around me.
Yeah. And I think that's easy to do too because, they always say men are from Mars and women are from Jupiter. So I think
Venus.
just by our makeup, we're naturally going to miss some things, but
Yeah.
I think it's everyone's responsibility to just widen your lens a little bit and just be a little more observant and introspective and see how you can show up better for the men in your life and support the men in your life the way that you would want someone to show up for you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in a place like Cayman where everybody knows somebody else, um, and where reputation can protect the wrong people and silence the right ones,
Mm-hmm.
the danger gets bigger.
Yeah.
Some men are not only afraid of what is happening at home, they're afraid of becoming a joke, of not being believed,
Mm-hmm.
of being told to toughen up,
Mm-hmm.
um, and watching the whole island side with the one with the better performance. So,
Yeah.
I would say my closing message to everyone would be: let tonight sit where it needs to sit,
Yes.
um, as a reminder that accountability must be consistent, or it isn't accountability at all. If we only recognize abuse when it comes in a form that we expect, then we're not protecting victims. All we're protecting is our own comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes the victim is him,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes the
Absolutely.
most dangerous person in the room is the one
It's
that the
her.
world swears is harmless.
Yes.
So, with that being said, how was your first show? How you feel about your first show, Maria?
Oh, this was good. It was good. Thank you
Think
for
you're ready for
having me.
Oh, we'll have you back.
I hope my feedback and my input was some substance.
Oh, of course, of course. This has been a pleasure. It's been a real pleasure.
I have to say it's nice having three.
It is. It
It,
is.
it's nice having three, having a third voice. So we want you back.
Well, I will gladly be a guest again.
All right. With that said, good night, Cayman. Good night, world.
Good night. Happy
Good
weekend.
night.
Cause real love steady, it don't need show. It move like reggae bassline, nice and slow. Real talk, love and lies. You see through all them disguise. Truth come first, we no compromise. Open your eyes, open your eyes. From Cayman Shore to City Lights, we talk love and we talk lies. Hold your heart, protect your vibes. It's real talk tonight.